Mhm. I will have to balance on the hour just so I can transition to continue meeting with clients and whatnot. But it's great to be here with all the folks that are here. My name is James Harrison. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm licensed here in California and also in Arizona. My background is actually in music education. I did my bachelor's in music and was teaching in the Midwest. I'm originally from Chicago. I've been out here in California since around 2002, but that was Chicago was definitely the kind of foundation for learning about mental health and kind of dealing with my own mental health and being able to find outlets to be able to channel some of the healthy and potentially some of the unhealthy ways that the mental health kind of just shows up and was showing up in my life. I say this to everybody. I think I definitely have had my own bouts with depression and trauma and anxiety and just different manifestations of unhealthy experiences, but also learning how to manage that and throughout my life. So I make an effort to bring in some of the things that have worked for me, but also just through the training that I've had as a social worker. I did my graduate degree in Washington, D.C. at Gallaudet University. And I work with deaf and hard of hearing folks and working with families and people on just the spectrum of mental health or mental wellness, and being able to understand more about what allows for them to thrive and what allows for them to recognize what are survival mechanisms for them, defense mechanisms, just lots of different ways of being in the world, whether or not that be Black and brown folks, just kind of the spectrum of humanity. So what I would say is that, yeah, the musical part of my life, I could say I grew up in the church. My mom was a choir director. So I was right there on Sundays and Thursdays and all the days in between trying to learn the songs and learning how impactful music can be and transforming the experiences that we have regardless of where we are. I think that music has been a critical and very important instrumental part in my life from a very young age, and something that it continues to stick with me and different, I would say, manifestations. So here in California, I've involved myself in dance, which I wasn't expecting to do throughout my younger years, but it's interesting that one of my early drum instructors told me that if I wanted to learn how to play music well, I didn't learn how to dance. And I was like, nah, that's some bull crap. Like, I'm not trying to dance. I was just trying to do my music thing, just enjoy that. But I did find that same message came up some years later when I went to go travel abroad and connected with a music teacher in Cuba. And he said the same exact thing. If you want to learn how to play this music well, you need to learn how to dance. So learn how to get into your body, learn how to connect with the music, learn how to connect with your ancestors, learn how to connect with vibration. So I'm trying to also incorporate that into some of the work that I do with folks where possible, is talk about how they are feeling literally in their bodies, because how we feel translates into the thoughts that we have. It translates into the kinds of experiences that we have in community. It translates into the kind of spiritual connection we have with whatever the practices that we have with each other. So I say all that to say is that when I have been developing my practice inside of mental wellness, it's been able to focus on the biological, the psychological, the social, and the spiritual. And what that means for me and talking with persons is when and I said it just even a few moments ago, when we are feeling something, we did decide whether or not this is something that feels safe for us or if it's something that is a threat to us in some way. So it taps into some of those survival mechanisms, and it taps into some of the ways that we are going to communicate and share outwardly, or even talking to ourselves about what this means for our experience. If something is hot, do I want to move closer towards that? Do I want to move away from that? But also inside of relationships with others, what then comes up for us. So we're talking to a group of dads and dads potentially soon to be. I think and I'm not a father myself, but I've worked with a lot of families, specifically in the foster care system, or people who are navigating the foster care system, and being able to talk about the kinds of communication that is healthy or the kind of communication that's unhealthy inside of these different relationships between parents and or caregivers, and just the systemic relationships that are possible with social workers or with attorneys and all the other people that can be involved in those systems of care. So what I'll go back to talking about is how we do end up, or how we do continue to create shared meaning in our relationships, especially when we're talking about young people and the kind of language or the kind of communication tools they're able to access when talking about their experiences with whomever it is that they're engaged with, if that's going to be a teacher, if that's going to be their parents, if it's going to be their friends. We want to be able to have a common or shared language to be able to communicate with. Y'all follow me so far? Just get some nods. Yeah, we good. So if at any point you all want to ask any questions, like feel free to just kind of jump in. Like I don't have anything written out here, but what I can say is that in talking to and working with different families, I've noticed that there can be some gaps in what's being understood. And that really does kind of stem from what it is that we're sensing in our bodies and how we're communicating that to others. And I said a little bit ago that sometimes when we're in relationships with folks, we can actually feel something and decide whether or not we want to stay engaged in that or not. Somebody can give off a vibe, is what we hear in our community sometimes, right? We can say, well, this person gives off a certain kind of vibe, which either attracts me to them or kind of repels me from them. So we get to explore what that means for us. How do these thoughts come to be? How do these feelings become or start to become recognizable as feeling safe or not? And what do we then do with them? So again, just talking about recognizing what feels safe. Everybody may not have the same sense of safety. And I think for young folks, I think it's really important for them to be able to recognize with caregivers or recognize with parents what is a safe feeling for them and what is an unsafe feeling for them, and how they can begin to move through that. What are the tools that they're able to use so that they can express themselves in a way that parents, teachers, other folks can understand. For some folks, and again, it's talking about the different kind of spectrums of feelings. I'm talking about expressions of happiness or expressions of sadness or expressions of just belonging. Everybody's going to relate to that and kind of have a different sense of that depending on how they were nurtured or what experiences they had. So I'm thinking about experiences where there's been either an absence of feeling cared for and understanding what some of that love is. I think it's important to recognize and to be able to communicate. Is there a question, Uncle Mike?
Yeah, yes, excuse me, Brother Harrison. I have a question for you. But before you answer the question, I'm going to request some new brothers. We just want to make sure that we recognize them before we continue. But my question is, when we come back, is how do we create that environment in the home where the child can actually know how and can express themselves? You know, quite often with my grandkids, I get one-word answers. I try to give open-ended questions, but I'm really trying to get in touch with them so that they can express their feelings and feel comfortable expressing when they're happy, they're not. All right, so we do have some new brothers on, and we want to welcome you guys. And if it's your first time, if you could just unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the group.
Hello, how you doing? Can you guys hit me? Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, Carl. Go ahead, brother.
Yes, 1 second. Sorry. Truck right now, so I didn't really have any lights on. Hello, fellas. How you doing? You guys can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm new to Zoom, so I've never really used Zoom, so I'm just kind of learning how to do it.
You're doing great.
All right, how you doing? My name is Carl Jones. I'm a friend of Joseph Cameron, close friend of mine. He introduced me to the group. So it was a really great men's group. So I'm here just to listen and, so.
Are you a dad? Dad to be?
Yeah, actually dad of 3, 1 older, 2 younger.
All right. Carl, thanks so much for joining us. And we look forward to fellowshipping with you continually.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Joseph, how are you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, gentlemen. My name is Joseph Cameron. I was introduced to the group by some family, Sammy. Everyone calls me brother for short. I'm a truck driver here in Martin Brower. Basically, we keep all the McDonald's and Chick-fil-A comfort foods and the stores packed.
That's important.
South Bronx. I reside in Highland Mills, New York. Truck driving, and really excited and happy there's a place that I can go to where gentlemen like myself are working and always trying to better ourselves. You know, as men, we got to be leaders, providers, gatherers, you know, for the family. I'm a father of two boys I have, and doing my best to raise them right and teach them what manhood is all about. And even when it comes to being spiritual and spiritually minded and having that guiding light guide you.
Well, Joseph, thanks so much for joining us. You're in the right place. We're all on that journey together. So welcome.
Welcome, brother. Welcome.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for joining us. Is there anyone else new this evening? All right, everyone else is, Brother Harrison, thank you so much. I apologize for that. We just want to make sure that everyone.
And David, just so you guys understand, one of the reasons why we do that is because there are only supposed to be men on the call. So some of you gentlemen who have your cameras off, you just want to make sure that you're supposed to be here, because we're going to say and do some things that might offend some folks who aren't supposed to be here. Appreciate it. Thank you, Z. Oh, Brandon. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to see you all. Mr. Harrison.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you all are making it inclusive in the way that you are, and just literally pausing to invite folks in and to welcome them in. So I think that's great. I think to answer Uncle Mike's question or to continue with that, I would love to hear more about the kinds of rituals that folks have. I mean, specifically to be able to connect with the young folks. For me, I think it's about setting aside specific time to be able to show interest in them and what it is that they care about, and to be able to have some commentary around that, and to have that commentary to be guided in a way that fosters some sense of, even what you're all doing here, some sense of belonging, some sense that they're being cared for, what they're interested in is important and it matters, and it's going to continue to nourish them in some way. But when there's an absence of that, or there's different language to be able to use with that. But and I'm thinking about some of John Gottman's, Gottman's work, and talking about relationships, especially in couples, but also as applicable to young people, are the kinds of bids, BIDS, that we offer to them so that they can understand what it means for them to feel connected. And if the bid is just kind of seeing them, and maybe sometimes eye contact is enough depending on the relationship, but if there's an absence of words to say that I see you, or I see that what you're doing is progressing, or I see that you're evolving, I see that you're expanding, I see that you're doing things and this is pleasing to me, and engaging them to find out how pleasing or how enjoyable that is for them, then that has the potential to build some of that momentum and being able to strengthen or create an environment that allows for them to feel safe. Like I want to say the opposite of that, when we think about the polarization potentially of that, is just kind of leaving them be and letting them do whatever they want to do, which is not necessarily bad, right? It's being able to say, well, what then does that foster in creating an environment that feels safe? Because there can be a period in a child's or even adult, any art development, that warrants that need for time to have that space for self and just to be. Right, and that's something that can allow for us to grow and to be creative, and especially for little ones, they're like, well, it's gonna do what I'm gonna do anyway, regardless of what you say, I'm gonna be. And when there is a healthy caregiver relationship or a healthy peer relationship, and there's language that again fosters, it says that I care about you, I love you, I want to see you thrive, then I think that's going to help to contribute to that. So I'm not sure what the age of the young person is that you're referencing, Uncle Mike. But...
7 and 9, and what you shared was very helpful. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Ishmael has a question.
Go ahead, Ishmael.
Hey, James, thank you for joining on. Can you talk about the importance of flashcards, and can you show us your flashcards, and why did you name it Fam You All Right?
Yeah, so I created the Family You All Right brand to be able to offer some more emotional vocabulary specific to young people, but also for adults and for teens, it's kind of the spectrum of folks. So you heard me say this word or this phrase before, creating some shared meaning. So when I say that I'm feeling happy, or if I say that I'm feeling disturbed or I'm feeling distraught in some way, what does that actually mean? What value do I place on that for myself? And how does a person that I'm communicating with understand what's going on for me? How do we sit with that for each other? The family-wide brand is focused on having the representation present for that and having those conversations. So when I started off as an intern in social work, as collecting hours to become licensed, there weren't very many tools that allowed for that representation, or there wasn't that representation present for Black and brown folks specifically. A lot of the emojis and the characters that were being used were not reflections of us. So when young people are going in to have conversations that are what I call intimate, or what we might call intimate, then they want to see something that is a reflection of them in some shape, form, or another, right? And also, I think it's part of the collection and this specific deck are questions or prompts to be able to kind of to sink into what some of those conversations, what's possible, and the kind of spectrum of conversations that can be had with young people, but also with adults and folks that are having these kinds of, I say, intimate relationships. When I say intimacy, I don't necessarily mean sex. It really is a deeper understanding of self and potentially a deeper understanding of others in this, I say, pursuit of empathy and care and compassion. So I'll share with you some of the cards that are here. I have it in, right now, it's in English and in Kiswahili, but I want to be able to expand it into some other languages. So on the front side of the cards, you'll see an expression. And on the back side will be the translation of the expression into Kiswahili and in English at the bottom. The reason why I put it into these two languages to start is so that, one, we have a word that reflects the expression for some folks who are developing that emotional vocabulary, and also to be able to connect with some words or sounds and talk about vibration earlier, that are also part of our cultures, the cultures of African diaspora, right? So the Kiswahili is spoken in at least 9 countries in the continent. It's usually for a lot of folks, it's probably the most accessible one as far as pronunciation, because pronunciation is going to be almost exactly the same as you would when you encounter Spanish. So it's another opportunity to kind of engage young people in learning, but also to I say learning one language, but also being able to extend it into culture, and something that I think is important for us to see outside of just the American context of what culture is or what language is. So there's 30 total expressions inside of the deck with the translations, and there's also, like I said, the prompt cards, which I'll show you briefly here. But again, each of these expressions and each of the expressions is going to share the hue of what Black and brown folks look like, as compared to just having a plain-faced image across the board. So this is something that I see is definitely applicable to younger audiences. At least the images are a lot more appealing to younger audiences. But when we start looking at some of the prompts that are present, and I'll pull out a few here, it's to start conversations that may or may not be present in some of those day-to-day conversations with folks. So this one, do any of the illustrations remind you of someone? And if so, who? So for folks for young people or even adults, and I mentioned this earlier, there might be a vibration that comes from a feeling that comes from seeing a particular individual in the family or out in the world. So we get to have a conversation about what it is that I'm going to do with that feeling, how I'm going to respond to or react to a situation when somebody like that comes into my life again. I think that for folks who, and I don't want to get too tangential with it, but when we are talking to our young folks and their experience with law enforcement, their experience with teachers or whomever, friends, they can say, well, I saw this expression with them and I thought it meant this. We get to ask those persons, like, what did the expression actually communicate, right? Because I can have my interpretation of what I think a mad expression is, but somebody else might think it's just my resting face, right? But how then do we open up dialogue for, one, our young people, but also for teenagers to be able to create some shared language, have some shared meaning? inside of it could be a game or inside of any other activity. Does that make sense?
That's great. That's really on point. Kendrick has his hand up.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to go back to what you said earlier because it resonates and I like to reiterate it when I hear it. I think one of the things we need to take into consideration or be mindful of is the cross-generational effect that these exchanges have. So I often realize that in talking to my young one, when she talks to her friends and tells her friends that I get things that we discuss, sometimes it's shocking to them. So they're like, wow, and they're more inclined to have conversations with their people because they want to see whether or not they do. So it's kind of the trajectory that he mentioned where some parents are standoffish or just adults are standoffish and they're like, I'm not going to say anything because I'm not trying to create something. And that young person's perception is that they don't care or they don't understand or we can't communicate. But these young have conversations. And when one of them says, yeah, me and my dad talk about everything, they're like, what? For real? They're either going to want to talk to that dad or they're going to go home and try their parents. So like, I think we should be mindful of that when we're having these exchanges because those conversations, so sometimes they may be having experiences that they haven't been able to communicate to anyone and they're just sitting on them. And sometimes this is the thing that drives them in the direction to say, okay, well, let me go and try this. It's coincidental we're having this conversation because I happen to see the episode of The Cosbys when one of Denise's girlfriends asked Denise to have her dad to see her because she wasn't feeling well. And what that prompted Bill to do was have a discussion with his kids because he said he would be undone if something was going on with one of his kids and they felt like they couldn't bring it to him. And so I think there are kids who are having these experiences, and sometimes it's the conversations that we have with ours that they take to them, that they subsequently are either going to come to that adult that that person has, or they're going to the adult that they have. So it's critical. Like, and the last thing, because he just brought it up, I have a tendency in my practice to ask folks, how does what you're feeling show up in your body? Because there's always a feeling attached to what you're experiencing, no matter what it is. And so you should be asking that question because it could be heat, heart palpitations, cold, anything. So like knowing how it affects them is something that they can come to understand and eventually and gradually unpack, as opposed to normalizing it. Because if they do, it's probably something suppressive.
Thank you, Kendrick. Brother Harrison, did you want to respond to that, or can we go to the next question?
I think that's good. I mean, I think I would just finish up because Ishmael also asked me how did I come up with the name specifically. I think that often in past people, we were asking each other like, how are we doing? Are you all right? And I think that being able to incorporate that and actually be intentional about asking that question instead of it being, oh, I'm good, and just keep on going about the day. Like, take a moment to sit and ask yourself or ask these young people or ask others and to make space to be able to answer those questions or to be able to respond to or to hold the information that's being shared when that question is being asked. So family all right is literally like, I'm asking you right now, are you all right? And are you able to articulate that? If you're not able to articulate it, can you point to an image that will bring us closer to an understanding of what you're experiencing right now so we can start to either experience more of that or potentially release that so it's not hindering our ability to thrive.
Yeah, I think that's so important. You mentioned it's important that we look them straight in the eye and provide that space and slow down, because that's something I'm getting in the habit of putting down my cell phone and making sure that I'm looking them straight in the eye and there are no distractions so they don't interpret it as you're just doing this out of courtesy or you just because you don't really mean it. So I have to try to really create a zone and a space that they know I really want to know, how are you doing? You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Sam has a question.
Thank you so much for talking about this mental illness. I have a son. He's not my biological, but he is my son, so I just call him my son. He's 26 years old and he have a very mental illness. And the cops come here a lot. I live in the Bronx. And fortunately, they know even when he doesn't take his meds, he's not harmful. He's not going to hurt nobody. And they all come and they go, oh, we know him. So it's a good thing that the same cops came all the time. Fortunately, he's doing really good now. But it's one incident where he went to the hospital and I picked him up. And when I picked him up, he asked me, because there was a whole bunch of cops in the house. He goes, Sam, with all those cops there, you wouldn't have let them jump me, would you? And I turned to him and looked him in his eyes. I said, I'll never go against the grain. And it was just a smile on his face, just to feel safe, that I always have his back no matter what. And it's just good to know sometimes the cops know, the people. And I was happy because the cops came in, they go, no. One of them was like, nah, he's not a violent guy. So, it's just good that we have these conversations on mental illness and stuff like that. Thank you. That was it.
Thank you for sharing that, Brother Sam. Yeah, I'm happy to hear that there's some positive experiences that do happen, and the recognition and I say there's a humanization that also is worth speaking to. I think that when young people, but also adults too, do not get recognized for what they're experiencing, that there is a dehumanization that happens. And we want to, I think that there's a need to do more things or say more things that do humanize people's experiences, regardless of where they fall on the spectrum of mental wellness or mental illness. Being able to see them as human beings first, and be able to treat them as such. I think that when people see that somebody is violent, they kind of see somebody as violent, or see that somebody is disturbed, or somebody's having a hard time. It can be challenging to see their humanity first. So I'm thankful to hear that, for example.
I'm a bit concerned of how our mental health is going to be affected by the pandemic and what we're going through, especially for our young ones. And if there's something that we should be focusing on to support them. You have anything to share on that? Yeah, how the pandemic might be affecting our young ones?
That's something that I struggle to answer in the moment, because there's so many things to be able to consider. The base, I guess, of what I would share is creating rituals that are sustainable and enjoyable. Right. I think that the pandemic, or just the response to it, has created a lot of, it's distorted quite a few things. I mean, it's just, to use very simply, even the ways that young folks and adults too are going to school or participating in workspaces. It's been a disruption. And when we have any kind of disruption, we sometimes have to figure out ways to recover from that. So I think part of that process is being able to talk about how somebody is engaging in, or what they are aware of as part of their recovery, and trying to find a new sense of normalcy, and creating some sense of normalcy from what may feel like chaos, either temporarily or still feels that way. We know that as human beings, we for most of us, I would say, we enjoy some kind of routine or habit. We'd like for things to be somewhat predictable. And when that predictability goes away, then when there's a bit more uncertainty, or there's a bit more instability that we're experiencing. But I think it was Uncle Mike, I think Kendrick, talking about how things show up in our bodies. And when we're experiencing some level of stress, we got to figure out what to do with that stress. And some of us have some healthy ways of coping with that stress, and some of us potentially have some unhealthy ways of coping with that stress. So I think being able to understand, or being able to have conversations with our young folks, but also with ourselves, about what it is that we do to cope when we're feeling the spectrum of stress. If it's something that feels like it's not that big a deal, it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, a 1 is, I can do this, I can kind of brush it off, so to speak. But if I get to something that feels more in the kind of 7 to 10, or even 6 to 10-ish range, then what do I do to take care of myself? And some folks are pretty clear about what tools are in their toolkit to be able to access for themselves when an upheaval happens or a transition happens. And some people haven't spent as much time getting to know what it is that's going to be helpful for them So I think having those conversations to find out what has been helpful for a person to be able to cope with different circumstances or different stressors specifically is important. So, I mean, it's alongside that is being able to identify where joy is for us, where celebration is for us. And I want for things to feel like they always have to be heavy and kind of talk about the hard things. Coupled with that is how do we celebrate? How do we acknowledge? How do we show gratitude? How do we show love again towards one another? And if that is being disrupted, how do we bring that back? How do we reintroduce that or recreate that, reimagine that for our young people, even for ourselves? I know that for myself. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, music and dance have been a pretty significant part of my life, and that pandemic took away a bunch of that. There's no socializing for a bit. But even to be able to do so with a few folks definitely was helped to relieve some of that stress, helped to relieve some of that potential pain that I was experiencing. To go and listen to live music, or to be able to go and dance, to kind of literally identify what I needed physically in my body to be able to transform, or to be able to transcend in some way. So I would say just during the pandemic, find those rituals and play around with, have an idea of what some of the options are for the rituals that we want to be able to keep. For some folks, that's prayer. For some folks, that's movement. For some folks, that's food. For some folks, whatever the thing is, like how often are we able to engage with those things in the way that is healthy, that feels sustainable? Because there's been lots that has been overturned for us in lots of ways.
It's interesting that you talk about celebration. Our last week, we talked about celebrating our birthdays. And a lot of us had to confess that we do not celebrate our birthdays. Mm-hmm. And we were encouraging each other to allow people to celebrate us and mm-hmm. to acknowledge us. So a lot of us brothers are making up our mind that our next birthday, we're going to allow people to celebrate us.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I just want to let the brothers that just came on, we're very blessed to have Brother Harrison with us. He's talking to us about mental health and mental wellness. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. It's open dialogue. We're so happy that you're here with us this evening. So feel free to just chime in with any questions that you have for Brother Harrison. Ishmael, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Uncle Mike. Hey, bro, I want to ask you a question. Talk about the significance of checking on people around the holidays, because I think more and more important that we need to check on like people that we haven't talked to in a while, to check how they're doing, because I know like through studies that suicide rate go high around this time because a lot of people are lonely around the holidays. So can you kind of talk about the significance of just checking on people around this time?
Yeah. So some of the things I'm thinking about right now is just even the change of seasons and what that does for us. I think in the summertime, we're potentially out and about doing whatever it is that we're doing. It's fall time, things start to maybe slow down a little bit. In winter, things typically start to freeze depending on where you are in the world. Right? Like growing up in Chicago, definitely got the freeze option. West Coast, East Coast, I'm sure folks are experiencing similar things, but I think it's important for us to check in with our people during the holidays, because I think the kinds of relationships that have been nurtured and the kinds of ways that we do include or exclude folks, I think it becomes a little bit more pronounced around, again, either the celebration of holidays or potentially not being able to be connected with folks during the holidays. And again, I think that I keep saying this word intimacy, the kind of intimate knowledge that we have about the ways that people do feel connected to community is really, really important. If we don't know how how a person is able to survive, what they are using to survive, what they are using to thrive, and how we are aware of or engaged in or have some connection with the ways that they do that for themselves or how they want to be included. And like when that's absent, there's I think a higher degree of loss that a person is going to experience. And then think that, I don't want to get too tangential here. The kinds of losses that we acknowledge also need to be recognized more consistently. I think that we experience kind of these big losses, which might be the loss of a family member or the loss of a significant object or lifestyle or something like that. But these kind of micro losses that kind of feel like I didn't get what I wanted on this particular day, or so-and-so didn't reach out to me. Like some of those kinds of connections also matter. And over time, it's like drops in the bucket. So if I haven't heard from somebody over a period of time, it's like, well, there's this kind of compound, a lot of people talk about compound interest, compound loss, then can also add up and turn into something that feels mentally unwell for someone, it introduces a different kind of instability. So to have that and understanding what kinds of connections folks want to have, whether or not, and I'm not sure how many folks are aware of the love languages or even what those things are, but I think that recognizing how somebody wants to be loved, regardless of whether or not you subscribe to the love languages or not, speaking the language that a person understands, I think is critical. So when we're talking about just things that happen during the holidays, like what kinds of things have been building up for individuals, I think that it's important to acknowledge that people are worthy, that they're valuable, that they're cared for, that they're loved, and we can continue to show those messages and not let those things drop off during the holidays, and for that to just be focused on just a couple of folks, really try to expand that into the community. I think that it can be it's easier for us to just become more dismissive at times. Just kind of depending on how busy we are or how much the capacity that we have. There's no blame to anybody around that. It's just to say that we can be aware of how much we are able to give to one another during the holidays. Not to say the holidays has to be an excuse to be more giving necessarily. And I think there's space to continue to be aware of the kinds of losses that folks might be experiencing, especially when there has been loss in family specifically, because it can be a little bit harder for folks around the holidays or birthdays or different kinds of celebrations.
Thank you so much. So the challenge that we're going to put out tonight is that everyone be intentional. We want everyone to be intentional and reach out to at least 2 or 3 people this week and this coming week. Let's motivate each other and challenge each other to be intentional and reach out to someone that you haven't reached out to in a while. Not only it will do something for the person you call, but it actually will do something for your mental well-being also. So let's do that. We have Joaquin and then our brother in Galaxy 812. I think I know his name. Okay, so Joaquin, go ahead.
Thanks. No, I just realized that I haven't been hitting, I've been hitting the emoji for the raise a hand, but it always clicks off. So I'm like, why am I not getting acknowledged? And then I actually see it says raise hand. And I never saw that before. I went, oh, that's why nobody's freaking Uncle Mike never calls on me.
I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Nah, that's my fault. I just learned it. But yeah, brother, James Harrison, brother, thanks for being here and sharing. And those cards that you have, are they available for sale? Is there any way I can?
They are available online. They're through the website, FAM, YOU, all right, ALRIGHT.com.
We'll have Ishmael to actually put it in the chat room for us. Ishmael, if you take care of that for us, please.
FAMUalright.com.
Yeah, and if you use the code JIDAI25, and then you get 25% off.
JID.
I'll put it in the chat here just so that you have it.
No, I was just writing it down. JID, can you say it again, please?
JIDAI25.
Got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, but one of the things, and Kendra kind of touched on it, I always get asked the question, where do you feel that in your body? And like, even today, like I was having a lot of negative thoughts, right? Maybe I was feeling a little unsafe in the moment and it was triggering other negative thoughts, but I never think to ask myself, where am I feeling that in my body? Or what am I feeling in my body? So how do you, maybe train yourself, or what is it you do to actually, create that space for yourself to say, hey, what am I feeling in my body?
Yeah. You all ever get those chills, listen to somebody sing? or watching a play happen on a football field or anything like that, where your body literally becomes kind of, I say overwhelmed, but there's just a sensation of like this tingling that happens. Anybody ever experienced that? You ever experienced that, Joaquin?
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that since having that shared experience, being able to slow ourselves down is most accessible through how we breathe. I think that when we pay attention to these different experiences that we have, when our breath is faster, then our thoughts are probably a little bit faster. Lots of things are happening for us, right? When our breath is slower, we can slow some things down for ourselves. We can also feel our bodies differently. We can literally see the expansion and the contraction of our abdomen, and even be able to feel that and kind of, I guess, let's say slow down that experience, is being able to just to focus on that one part of our body where we can visualize and to touch and to sense. There's lots of people say that the gut is the second brain, where it's probably like the first brain, really. So being able to be in touch with and understand what's happening in that part of our bodies will then start to expand into those other parts of who we are, what we are able to understand about ourselves. So I think being able to feel what that is it literally just being able to choose a part of our bodies to become aware of, right? I think it's a lot easier to do that when we're pacing but playing with, I like to use words around playfulness, but playing with our breath. Right? We play with our food, play with all these other things, play video games, all this other stuff. When we slow down and just deal with what we have access to, when we get rid of the screens, we get rid of the books, we get rid of whatever the thing is, and we just sit with ourselves, which can be really challenging for some people. And for others, they've been practicing it for a while, but just even doing it for 30 seconds. People are like, I can do it for 30 seconds. Let's see you do it for 30 seconds. Just try it out, see what happens, see what thoughts then start to arise. But then we continue to develop a practice or a ritual to expand that and see what is then present for us. Because I mean, not to say that the ultimate goal needs to be enlightenment, but we get to raise our vibration, we get to raise our consciousness, and we get to increase our connection with our bodies, but also with others, and being able to slow it down, right? I think that depending on the activities that folks are engaged in, I think for me being like I would say a former runner, learning how to control that breath while running or engaged in activity definitely informs the kind of performance that I'm going to have. And the same thing with music or with dance. Like you can definitely push out breath in a different way and have a different experience if you're weightlifting or whatever the thing is. So being able to be more acutely attuned with just when I breathe, what do I notice is happening? Do I sense any pressure? Do I sense something being released or relaxed, or what's going on? And how relaxed can I be when I'm breathing? Or how tense do I sense that I am if I'm breathing too fast? And is it something that I feel like in the moment I can guide or control? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm really into breath work too. So I will start there, paying attention to my breath in those moments. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll try that if I could only think of it, in the moment. But for sure, thank you, appreciate it.
And I think I was just piggyback on that really briefly here, Joaquin, is we should I think it's important for us to practice the things even when we don't need it. Like instead of me waiting until game day to go and try this new thing, let me try that a few times beforehand. You see what it's like to play with it before it's game time. Like if I'm experiencing a panic attack in the moment, if I'm waiting until a panic attack happens to get in touch with my breath, my mind is already trying to figure out something else. There's not a tether to what my baseline is. If I'm practicing breathing at a certain pace throughout the day, the potential for the stress to be as impactful because I'm already practicing this thing is going to be significantly reduced compared to me waiting until that moment to then practice that breath, because I'm already been offering myself as being things offered to me that are heightening or increasing my stress. But if I'm more in control of that stress consistently, then likelihood that I'm going to be out of alignment, is what I would call it, is going to be significantly reduced.
Brother Harrison, thank you so much. I want to be respectful to your time. So what time do you have to leave?
Right at 5 is good.
All right, right, okay.
Right at 8 for you guys.
Okay, so we have two more questions. Fabian, and then James. You're muted, Fabian.
Yes. Excuse me for my tardiness. I had a prior engagement. I just wanted to piggyback off of what you said and what the gentleman before you said about around time of the holidays. Something I've seen that I think is good to practice as well amongst men, because sometimes, like, when we're at our lowest, we have no one to call. Like, we feel like we handle things on our own. And it's not too many men that has a man friend or somebody that's cool with them that they, or even family, that they can call and say, yo, I love you. You know what I'm saying? Without any kind of, you know, anything. Like, you can call a real brother and be like, yo, I love you, brother. You know, that's it. Like, as men, we need that as well. And I have like 3 street brothers that I can do that with. You know what I'm saying? I even spoke to them about that as well. Like, the strength in that, you know. And
thanks, Fabian. Thanks so much for sharing. You read my mind. You're so on point. James?
Yeah, the question, well, it's not really I guess you can call it a question. Going back to what Davian said, that is true, because women have shows like The Red Table Talk, The View, Wendy Williams, Ellen DeGeneres. What do we have? You know what I mean? And the question I wanted to ask is relating to calling people for the holidays. I've always said this when I was younger. What'd you say?
No, someone we have to mute. Go ahead.
I've always said this when I was younger. It takes 30 seconds to call somebody, text somebody, whatever the case may be, to see how they're doing, see if they're alive. You know what I mean? So my whole thing is, why should you go out of your way to call somebody, text somebody, whatever the case may be, if they're not doing it at all? You know what I mean? Based on what I just said, it takes 30 seconds. So if they haven't done it at all, why should you do it? You know what I mean? Because I've experienced situations where, you know, again, when I was younger, I was always the individual to call first, text first, and then the individual I would talk to, text or whatever, the same effort or energy was never reciprocated. So now I don't care who you are. If I call you, I call you once, okay, you don't answer the phone, all right, cool. If I call you again and you don't answer the phone, you may end up on a block list. I don't know. Because I feel like I'm 23, so my generation, everybody in my generation keeps their phones on them all the time. So if somebody don't call you back, they didn't call you back because they didn't want to. You could be having the worst day of your life. It takes 30 seconds. Hey, I'm going through something right now. Can I call you later? I'm going through something right now. I don't know when I'm gonna talk to you again, but I saw you, you know what I mean, the missed call. So I've never really believed or like gave a what about calling somebody or texting somebody when they don't do the same in return at all. So I guess that's kind of, I don't know. I guess it's confusing thinking about calling somebody for a holiday or calling somebody in general when they don't call you. You know what I'm saying? So that's all. That's it. That's all I wanted to say. But thank you for taking time out of your day to help us and, give us your knowledge or whatnot, man.
Absolutely.
Thanks, James. Thanks, James.
I'm grateful for that reflection, James. I think that, relationships they're complex. I think it's challenging to always know. It's impossible to always know what's going on for the folks that are in some of our circles. And we get to choose how often. This is where that boundary work comes in too. We get to choose how often we're going to be reaching out to and making an effort to connect with folks. But we also get to, where possible, have conversations with folks about what the status of the relationship is. And I think that also requires a certain level for any of us, like a certain level, myself included, a certain level of emotional maturity or even emotional intelligence or even connection to be able to ask someone, or for them to feel vulnerable enough, to feel secure enough to be able to say or to share in ways that make sense to them and to us, what they have the capacity for. I think that some folks, I mean, even folks that I work with, have at times felt like they needed to just shut everybody out for whatever the reason was, because whatever's going on for them. I think that this is that space potentially, and this is for myself to practice too. What kind of compassion am I going to be able to access for whomever it is out there? Like, I think that there can definitely be bridges that get burned and just don't need to be reestablished. That's a thing. Like, I'm not saying that that should not be in somebody's wheelhouse. And we also get to create, or we get to create the kind of communities that we visualize, and to look at the kinds of doors that we want to keep open, so that we can be stronger, or we can have that sense of strength and community. So yeah, it makes sense. It resonates with me, what you said.
So Brother Harrison, we want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. We've learned so much. You gave us a lot of gems. If no one has a question direct to Brother Harrison, we can continue the conversation. Kendrick, I know you're going to drop some pearls for us after Brother Harrison leaves. So we'll hold. Anyone have any last minute questions directed towards Brother James? You could just unmute yourself and just shoot it real. We just have about 3 more minutes here.
Yeah, I have one for him. How you doing, Brother James?
I'm doing well, Rashawn. How you feel today?
Good. So I heard you talk a lot about rituals and about vibration and stuff like that. How do you feel about healing vibrations and the strength of music and healing the body physically?
No, that's the place that I would like to sit in a whole lot more. I'll say it like that. I think that all vibration has an impact. If you've not looked into Dr., I think his name is Emoto Masaru's work, he did the work around presenting language and or even sound to water, and then crystallizing it to see the kinds of formations that were created. Have you seen that work before?
Yeah, I have.
So I think that's a testament to the ways that vibrations have an impact on at least for that element, right? And if our bodies are 80, 70 something percent water, then what does that do for us to be able to resonate with or to maintain certain kinds of vibrations inside of us that are going to help us to either heal or they're going to be destructive towards us? That happens with food, it happens with sound, with all kinds of different things. But I think it's just important for us to recognize the kinds of vibrations that do, I say, sit with us or are in harmony with us, and to interact with those as often as we're able to. And that is the language that we use with ourselves, or the language we offer to others consistently. So if it is the music that we're listening to and I said literally consuming, and even the words that we express and share with others, there's vibration in that. There's energy inside of that. There's healing inside of that. There can be destruction in it too. But I think that it's really important that we recognize for each person individually, but also as a collective or as community, which of those sounds or which of those vibrations is in harmony.
All right, yeah, because I have recently did a little bit of studying on some different the effects of megahertz, is that how you say, on the body and on how plants grow, and like you said, how the water crystallized and different sand vibration patterns and things like that. So I was just curious what you're talking about.
Yeah. Listen to different kinds of music, we start to either move or not. And we're like, this music either hypes me up or it shuts me down. I think that's often evidence enough, about how impactful that can be for us and what we're going to be able to access in that space.
Absolutely. All right, thank you.
So Brother Harrison, we want to respect your time, but I want to tell you something before you leave. There's been an unspoken competition going on in this group, and I think you broke it for us, which I appreciate. The beer that you have, you actually helped us here tonight, because someone felt that they had the most whatever. But anyway, thanks for coming. Thanks for your beer. It's is actually giving us a little leverage here for those of us that don't have any here or no badge. So thanks. Thank you for more than one reason for being here tonight. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. We hope that you come and visit us again. Phil, do you have anything you want to say?
No, bearded brothers hang together. So I appreciate you coming today. It was a great time. So thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to be connected with you all as family. I definitely would look forward to connecting with you all and chatting with you all again when the time allows. Yeah. If anybody wants to reach out to me anytime, you can do so via email. It's james@chcfam.com or connect@chcfam.com. Either way, I definitely will respond. I'm happy to share resources or just to chat it up when time permits. So I wish you all the best throughout the holidays and into the new year. Continue loving on each other, and I hope to connect with you all again real soon here.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. All right, y'all.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
All right, Kendrick.
Yeah, I'm choking. I'm choking.
Why are you choking? Don't choke.
James, young James.
Oh, okay.
It's not.
Stop the recording.
Am I? Oh, James, can